You know, have you ever had that feeling that the person you are right now isn't the whole story? For centuries, people have been fascinated by the idea of past lives. But now, the way we're looking into it is changing. It's moving from just stories to, well, something a lot more like science. Let's get into it.
So let's start with the big one. Who were you before this? It's a simple question, right? But it hits right at the heart of who we think we are. It's really the jumping off point for what researchers are now calling life continuity. And to even begin to explore this, you need some kind of model, a way to think about how a soul's blueprint might actually be carried through time.
Okay, so a really great way to picture this is what's called the candle model. Think about it like this. The flame, that's your core consciousness, your awareness, your memories, the you-ness of you. The candle itself, the wax in the wick, that's just one lifetime. It's your body, your personality. When that candle burns out, the flame doesn't just disappear, right? It just moves on to light a new one. The flame keeps going even when the form changes. Now, for a long time, this field was really shaped by pioneers like Dr. Ian Stevenson, who did some incredibly meticulous academic research. But it was Dr. Walter Semke who took all this complex evidence and made it accessible for everyone. He started to see these patterns, these clues that just kept showing up again and again in different cases.
So this is where Semke's framework comes in. He started to categorize these clues. You've got things like uncanny physical resemblances between two people across time, or birthmarks that line up perfectly with wounds from a past life. He also documented cases of xenoglossy. That's where little kids can suddenly speak a language they were never ever taught. And a huge one, he really highlighted this idea of soul groups, that we tend to reincarnate with the same people over and over to work through our relationships.
And it's not just about looking alike, not at all. There's this one amazing case of a man named Jeff Keane, who had this striking resemblance to a Civil War general, John B. Gordon. But here's the kicker. A linguistic expert analyzed their writing and confirmed their styles were identical. It just goes to show you that talents, patterns, even your unique voice, that can all be part of the blueprint that carries over. You know, for Dr. Simque, this research wasn't just some academic curiosity. It had a really deep purpose. He truly believed that if we could just grasp that we could be born into any religion, any nationality, any ethnicity, then all the artificial walls we build between us would just crumble. It's this incredible vision of empathy, all based on this idea of a shared human journey.
So after Dr. Semke passed away, there was this huge, crucial question hanging in the air. How does all this important work keep going? Well, the answer wasn't just to preserve his legacy, but to actually build on it, to reignite that flame for a whole new generation of researchers.
So you can see how it played out. After decades of Dr. Samke's incredible work, his passing in 2022 really was the end of an era. But then, in 2026, a new nonprofit was formed, the Institute for Life Continuity Studies, or ILCS, created for the specific purpose of carrying that torch forward. And ILCS came in with this really powerful guiding philosophy: extreme openness combined with extreme rigor. What that means is, yeah, be totally open to these extraordinary possibilities, but you have to ground the investigation in careful, evidence-based, and totally transparent methods. It's like building a bridge between that intuitive feeling and real scientific discipline.
So how do you add that rigor? How do you actually do that with this kind of research?
Well, you start by adding new tools to the toolkit, moving from those observational clues we talked about to something you can actually measure, something more like code. And this isn't about replacing the old methods, not at all. It's about enhancing them. So on one side, you still have that foundational, intuitive work, the stories, the photos, the memories. But on the other side, you're adding systematic analysis, using data to actually measure the strength of those connections. It's a both-and approach, and it creates a much, much richer picture. One of the most powerful new tools they're using is the Big Five personality model. You might have heard of it as OCEAN. It's a scientifically solid way to map personality. So you've got openness, which is basically how adventurous you are. Conscientiousness is how organized and on top of it you are. Extroversion is your social battery. Agreeableness is how cooperative you are. And neuroticism is about your emotional stability. By looking at these traits, researchers can create what's essentially a psychological fingerprint. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting in practice. Researchers can now compare these psychological profiles across time, and they might find traits that are consistent, like someone being highly agreeable in both lifetimes. Or, and this is cool, they might find complementary traits. Maybe one personality is super extroverted and the other is an introvert, almost like the soul is exploring different sides of the same coin. This just adds a whole new layer of data you can actually measure.
So all of this evolution is taking the research into brand new territory. It's becoming less about trying to prove one single case and more about trying to map the incredible complex journey of the soul itself.
The goal here isn't to create some kind of proof factory that spits out answers. It's more about building this rich, structured toolkit that helps people explore their own experiences in a really calm, non-sensational way. It just gives you a framework for asking those deep questions about who you are and what your purpose is. And I think this really gets to the most important takeaway of all. The focus is shifting away from just the sensational stuff, finding out you were someone famous. It's becoming about personal discovery. What are the lessons your soul is trying to learn? What are the relationships you're meant to continue? It's about figuring out the larger story that your life is just one small but vital part of. So, if this life, this personality you have right now, is just one chapter in a much, much bigger book, it leaves us with one last, pretty fascinating question to think about. What story is your soul writing?